The government wants frivolous, sovereign citizen type arguments kept out of court. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Common Sense Academy. I'm your host, Joe Palmetto, Joe the Lawyer. Today, we're going to cover an article where an individual, a very rich individual, makes a sovereign citizen type argument in court. And I got a list of the things that he said. It's pretty darn hilarious. Thank you for tuning in. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Free way to support the show. Also, consider buying the book that I wrote on sovereign citizens. That's right, I wrote the book on sovereign citizens. You can find it at Amazon. The link is in the description below. All right, before we jump into this very fun and hilarious argument, everybody, raise your cup, your glass in the air. You know, when we gather with friends, when we eat food, it always tastes better when you sip together, when you are in the company of those you know and or love. Raise your cup, your glass in the air. Sip with me. It tastes better when we sip together. Today I'm drinking Coke, Diet Coke from this terrific Steelers glass. Cheers. Well, more like a thermos than a glass. Okay. The fourth floor of the Holmes Building in Easton, PA, is the location of the United States District Court for Eastern Pennsylvania. Not far from me. I live in Pittsburgh. This is up north a little bit. Not everyone attending the court today may agree on where it is or even the court's jurisdiction. Maybe the United States of America is no longer there. I'm sorry, this is across the state for me, the Eastern District. Amos Miller and his Miller's Organic Farm at Bird in Hand, PA, heck of a name for a city or town, will appear in the federal court seeking to replace his attorney with Prairie Star National from Port Orchard, Washington. And let me tell you, when I read this article, I didn't think it was real at first. But I checked. I did a little research on the internet. Several publications have reported on this. Issues before the court involve who represents Miller as the court gets him to comply with some basic food safety requirements, like slaughtering beef and poultry under USDA inspection. We've seen no claim that Prairie Star's agent is an attorney who is ready to represent someone in federal court, and precious little from the agent addresses the actual issues. But the court's docket for today filled up with documents about the beliefs and fantasies of Prairie Star. In an initial filing titled My Status, Your Status, it claims, unless you are a citizen of the federal municipal government, you are not naturally or by birth a United States citizen. We've all heard that before, right? The federal citizen argument versus the real man, real person argument, that only if you give your consent to the federal government do the laws apply to you. Next bullet point. Being a U.S. citizen is not the same as being an American citizen. That's almost as dumb as the state citizen argument that some sovereign citizens like to make. Also lacks any reason, logic, or history. Next one. The government in Washington, D.C. is not the American government, but a governmental service corporation providing government services. Well, the government in D.C. does provide government services. There we go. Something makes sense. The Governmental Service Corporation borrowed the name of the United States of America. See, that goes back to one of the several theories that sovereigns had of like a great fraud, right? Either the 14th Amendment was passed and that replaced the government and it's illegitimate. Therefore, you can only be a part of the federal government if you consent, and anything that happened after the 14th Amendment is invalid. Or the banks took over in the 1920s during the Great Depression, or when the Federal Reserve was created, it took over and a fake government was thrust upon the United States. Nonsense. There is no single person responsible for the fraud and deception that goes back 130 years. Well, if we're going back to 1890, I don't believe this is a 14th Amendment argument. I believe that came into place before 1890. Though I may be incorrect about that. Maybe this is one of the amendment arguments. But that refers to their big fraud that a fake government was installed at some point around the turn of the century. It's a complicated story, but starts with the Vatican purchasing the derelict United States and splitting it into two parts. Oh, this one, that the Vatican controls the United States. If only, I'm sure the Vatican wished that they still had that much power. And did you know, as a fan of history, that the Vatican actually did have its own country for a long period of time in history in Italy called the Papal States, and the Pope was like a general and commanded armies. It's almost absurd, but watch Borgia's on Netflix. Read some history on that. Okay. Prairie Star National claims to hold a valid, durable power of attorney as appointed agent for Amos blank Miller, a living being, ding, 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 American national citizen. Prairie Star uses blank as Miller's middle name because his given or Christian name does not appear on the court documents. Oh, here we go. Let's play the word/writing game. Amos Miller is a man with resources. His farm ownership spans a couple of states, and he owns a buyer's club, which he uses to distribute nationwide. The Dallas attorney he wants to fire is a pro who was making progress. It makes no sense for Amos Miller to introduce this clown car into his defense, and government attorneys don't want Miller attorney Steve LaFuente removed until he can be replaced with a qualified attorney. To the extent that Mr. Miller's often pleaded ignorance is genuine, Mr. LaFuente has a history of guiding Mr. Miller away from frivolous sovereign citizen type arguments, and he serves a meaningful purpose here in continuing to do so, a government filing says. Now that, and I did some research on this, that didn't come from the judge. That came from the other attorney, the prosecuting attorney for the United States. They're telling the court, don't let this sovereign citizen fire his lawyer. We need his lawyer. He's got a good lawyer. Prairie Star's lawful advocate claims the U.S. Department of Agriculture is really bankrupt and out of business because the federal government has financially gone underwater 130 years ago. The lawful advocate further claims the U.S. Department of Justice can only proceed if federal attorneys list a true, TRU, all capitalized, secured party creditor in the matter on behalf of the USDA. That is because USDA is a debtor, as in a derivative of the United States of America, also a debtor in bankruptcy, according to their bogus filing. Miller began his latest move to change out his legal representation around October 1. Prior to that, LaFuente was making progress on behalf of his client. Miller was, at the end of August, facing a payment due date for a $250,000 fine, ouch, for contempt of court. LaFuente got the judge to put the deadline on hold by documenting Miller's progress to date, and it says here he did a bunch of things to comply with the judge's order, cease the slaughter and delivery of amenable animals, etc., etc. Miller swears that all court-required actions are not taken except for paying the $250,000 fine. I am sure that Miller and the lawyer just wants to get him the heck out of court. From this turn of events, it appears there are three questions. Why would Miller make a move to damage his defense, especially after the court recognized the progress he was making? Well, probably because he has sovereign citizens in his ear who want his money, his attention, and his focus. So they're persuading him, and he believes this stuff to a certain degree. Will Judge Smith set Prairie Star quickly and appoint a qualified attorney to represent Miller for the remaining of the proceeding? It will be interesting to see, really, if the judge can't allow a fake lawyer to come on, but if a person wants to represent themselves, ultimately it's going to be very difficult for a judge to stop that. Is the food freedom movement going to embrace or renounce Prairie Star National? Whoa, that's a movement I have never heard of, but maybe I have to look into. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this news article here, the sovereign citizen stuff, it finds its way into everything when it comes to the courts and law enforcement, everything. This guy's probably a billionaire or multi-millionaire, and he's wasting his time on these sovereign citizen arguments. There's just better ways to assert your rights. But it looks like he's got a real pro. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. You want to know more about the sovereign citizen movement, consider purchasing my book on sovereign citizens. You can find it. It is in the description below. All right, everybody. Common Sense Academy, Joe the Lawyer. Peace out.